Okay.
I can see council.
Well, we can't see you.
No, that's not fair.
Do you see some other names there? Okay.
Oh, is that,
Well, welcome everyone. We're just working out a few technical details and we'll get started any minute.
we get to do this all again tomorrow night.
Okay. I'd like to call to order the June 9th meeting of the Onalaska Common Council. The meeting was mailed and posted.
The big one.
Okay. The meeting's been called to order. We'll continue with the roll call. I am Mayor Kim Smith. I am here. Alder people, Tom Smith, please
Here.
answer when your name is called. Tom Smith is here. Jim Olson,
Here.
Dan Stevens,
Here.
Diane Wolf,
Here.
and Stephen Knott.
Present.
Thank you. We are all in attendance. The next item on the agenda, item 2, is the Pledge of Allegiance. We will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Stands. Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that. Item 3 is the rules of the City of Onalaska Common Council and its subcommittees. This is a harassment-free forum. The City Council and its subcommittee meetings shall be conducted in a courteous manner. Citizens, council, and committee members shall be allowed to state their positions in an atmosphere free of slander, insults, obscene remarks, threats of violence, or for use of council or committee as a forum for politics. Sufficient warnings may be given by the Sergeant at Arms at any time during the remarks, and in the event that any individual shall violate the rules of decorum heretofore set forth, such person may then be cut off from comment or debate. We'll now open the meeting to public input. Is there anyone from the public who would like to provide input? Please state your name and address and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Do we have anyone who would like to speak?
My name is Dave Conkle. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I'm a pastor at First Free Church in Onalaska, and I'd like to offer a prayer as your meeting gets started.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, Heavenly Father, I just thank you for the fact that these men and women have chosen to serve their community in this way. Lord, it's a big responsibility. They have decisions tonight that are small, maybe big decisions as well. But I pray that in every decision tonight in this place, there would be a sense of unity, a sense of clarity, a wisdom that goes even beyond themselves, Lord, and that in the end, they would have the courage to make the right decisions set before them, big or small, for the betterment of this community, because I know that that's what they want to do, Lord, and that's why they're serving. And I pray that in Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council?
Yes. Hello, this is Stephen Marcus.
Hello, Stephen Marcus.
I'm a resident at 906 Westview Circle Drive in Onalaska. And I'd like to thank the Common Council for allowing me to speak. The purpose of my input to this meeting tonight is to ask for consideration regarding the tree removal on the city right-of-way at my home address. My wife and I did grow up in Onalaska, and we graduated in 1991 and 1993 from Onalaska High School, respectively, but only recently returned to the area to raise our family back in 2013. We purchased our home at 906 Westview Circle Drive after living in Austin, Texas for approximately 15 years. At that time, we had no knowledge of the Urban Forestry Division when we purchased our home, and the tree that was cut down in late January of 2018, we did not know the right-of-way laws for the Urban Forestry Division. Since we purchased the home, the tree never appeared to be healthy and was awkwardly placed close to the curb. It seemed like it was fighting to grow against the tree that was closer to the center of the yard. It also held its leaves during the winter, and I had opinions that it needed to be removed. That being said, I'd like to take responsibility for my actions and plant a new tree. I would not have cut the tree down had I known it was owned by the city. I invest thousands of dollars into my yard every year. Fertilization, irrigation, landscaping, and actually in 2015, I did get awarded Yard of the Month from the Lions Club. So I do take pride in my yard, and I would not have removed something that should not have been, in my opinion, should not have been removed. So I appreciate your consideration and thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. We'll be discussing that later on in the agenda tonight. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council? Is there anyone else who would like to address the council? Last chance, if anyone else would like to address the council. Okay, thank you for attending. We'll move on then to item 5, the report from the mayor. Item A, the community update on COVID. I had this added to the agenda the last several months since things have been changing so rapidly, and we've attempted to adjust. I do feel like it's kind of settled into somewhat of a new normal. We are trying to get things open as much as possible, and are just doing the best we can. I guess I'll turn it over to Eric to talk about, give a little update on the status of City Hall, if people have business at City Hall.
Thank you, Your Honor. So beginning yesterday, we were able to, following the initial guidelines that I established about 3 standards of creating a safe work environment, reopen City Hall to the public. I will reiterate, the City Hall was never particularly closed for business. We always were open under, either drop boxes, telephone calls, emails, or fax, or what have you. But no, yesterday we were able to open up City Hall to the public again. There are limited hours at this point. It's Monday and Wednesday, 9 to 1, Tuesday and Thursday, 1 to 5. So be able to cover in any of normal working hours between the 2 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We do have some changes in place within the building, so if people do access the building, be aware there may be some different entrances to different offices, and we do have signs for social distancing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that update, Eric. Move on then to item B, the census update. I just wanted to remind everyone that every 10 years, the U.S. Census Bureau counts everyone who lives in the United States. Responding to the 2020 census gives everyone in our community the opportunity to help shape our future. The U.S. Constitution mandates the census, and it's our responsibility to respond. So a complete and accurate count is really important for us because it does also help determine funding for future programs. So far in Unalaska, we have 76.2% of the people have self-responded. This compares to the 2010 response rate was 82.2%. So we're getting there, but we're not there yet. Taking a broader view at the county, they're at 68.7%. In 2010, they had 79.5%. And overall, the state of Wisconsin is at 66.7% and is actually ranked second in the nation. So that's pretty good. So just a reminder, you can still respond actually up until the deadline is October 31st of 2020, but it's important that you get your response in as soon as possible because Before we know it, they'll have to start the knocking on the door phase. And that's what happens if you don't do a self-response. So please get your census responses in if you have not already done so. And then item C is Resolution 29-2020. This resolution rescinds Mayoral Order Number 4 and adopts the Cooley COVID-19 Compass as it relates to special events. This is an attempt to, we have several emergency orders in place, and we're trying to evaluate them regularly and make changes as necessary. So this would take that emergency order off place and adopt what our new normal is going to be going forward. So if the council would like to entertain Resolution 29-2020, I'd appreciate that.
Motion to approve Resolution 29-2020.
Second.
Okay, motion has been made by Alderperson Wolf, seconded by Alderperson Stevens to adopt Resolution 29-2020. Is there discussion? Alder Knott.
So with the adopting the Cooley COVID-19 Compass for special events, will the special events be falling underneath the category of social gatherings? Is that what that falls under? I'm wondering which category out of this multiple page compass falls under.
I'll defer to our city attorney, Amanda Jackson, to answer that question.
Would depend on the special event itself.
Okay, so, I mean, what would the majority of them fall under even? I just trying to curious because I mean, we need to know which one of these categories is going to be guiding us.
The majority, I think, would be an outdoor gathering. I think, I can elevate Dan Wick or Carrie, you can speak to what the majority are, but I mean, we see everything, a special event can be everything from a run to just, somebody that wants to have a party in the street, like a block party, the Great River Sound, that would be an outdoor music event. There's separate guidelines for like your farmer's market. I mean, we're probably looking at multiple categories. So, I mean, I can go through it and there's probably 3 or 4 that we would use most often, but I would say outdoor gathering is probably
The most common.
the most common.
So, with that, I have pretty serious concerns, I guess. Currently, they still have us listed, the board that we would be deferring to for determining this has us listed at high risk still, which means 15 or fewer indoors and 50 or fewer outdoors. I think that that's extreme, considering that the state is basically open and that bars and restaurants and churches across the state right now have far more than that, and we're creating a constraint that I don't know that is necessary. But even beyond that, I think some of you know in previous meetings already, I have real serious issues with just picking some random number for determining how many people can gather in the first place. Again, 15 indoors, why 15? Why not 14? Why not 16? Why not 20? Why not 5? I mean, it's totally arbitrary. There is no science based on this at all. And I just don't think that we should be having the board determine our special events, especially if they have what I think are kind of very questionable controls in place that are not scientifically based. I know that even the CDC has now accepted the study from Stanford that shows that the worst case mortality rate is now 0.26%. That's worst case. The Stanford study indicated it most likely was even less than that, but that was the worst case scenario. So CDC has accepted that. I'm not so sure our county board has accepted that because they have not changed anything here. In fact, these numbers and a lot of their methodology seem still based upon what were obviously gross overestimates on the spread of COVID-19 and the mortality of COVID-19 that were back in February. I don't really see any difference in their methodology here. And we know now that those are absurd. The estimates of, the 2.2 million people dying in the United States and all that, it's outrageous. And between Stanford studies out of Norway, studies out of Germany, several of them that have been peer reviewed, actual scientific studies, as opposed to guessing based on modeling, that they have repeatedly now shown that whether it be globally or with the Stanford study here inside the US, across the US, that the levels of constraints that governments put in place or not are showing that there is no statistical difference between people who went totally draconian and people who were far more open, that there's no difference, and the disease is doing what the disease does, and there's not much that we're going to do to change that. All we're going to be able to do is quarantine the sick and safeguard the at-risk population as best we can. But, again, I think the question I have is, especially to the board, the county board of health, is can we please stop? I understand that it is very difficult for politicians and bureaucrats to admit that they got something wrong. But I'm starting to conclude that there is no hope whatsoever that the county board is going to be able to admit that maybe they have some things wrong here, because they are still continuing to go down the path of basing their recommendations off of what is clearly still modeling, more than likely going all the way back to February, and we know that this isn't right. It's not that I am opposed to rescinding the mayoral order. I think it needs to be rescinded. But I am not in agreement at all that we should be deferring our own leadership responsibility to a board of unelected bureaucrats who are clearly showing that, to me anyway, that they're not making decisions based on the most recent science. So, I guess I'd like to open up if anyone else has any other comments.
Okay, thank you, Alder Knott, for your comments. Let me just explain a couple of things. I think that it's important with coming forward with Resolution 29, 2020. I think it's important that we do rescind the mayoral order number 4 because that greatly restricts our ability. And we're only talking about special events here. We're not talking about anything outside of special events. But the mayoral order 4 does greatly restrict the ability to have any special events except for reoccurring ones and then under special consideration. But once we do that, I think it's important for the community and for event planners to have a way to determine if they can have their event or not. And I don't think the city of Onalaska, as much as what I believe in all of us, I don't think that we have the technical knowledge exceeding the La Crosse County Health Department to determine what action we should take in what situations. I think it's a fluid situation. I don't disagree with all of your points, Alder Knott, but I do disagree that we should freewheel out and determine write our own set of guidelines when we have a county health department who does have jurisdiction in this situation. And granted, they've just put out guidelines. They're not mandates. But I think that their level of expertise exceeds the Onalaska Common Council's level of expertise when it comes to disease control. So that is why we defer to that. But let the other people talk first, and then we can come back to you. Alder Smith.
I also agree that we should rescind order number 4. I think we all agree on that. That's way too stringent. But with this resolution, we're saying that we'll support the counties in the compass thing. But that'll change, right? I mean, it could change next week. And by the time these special events get here, I know the cancer run is in October or November. I'm sure it's going to be completely different. But what we're just saying is that that's the guidelines that we'll use initially. But is there a way that we can make an exception? I think what Steve is saying, these are the guidelines, but what if they follow those guidelines, do they have to follow them per 100%? Or can we still at the time of the special event, make that decision? You know what I'm saying? Is we're saying, well, following the guidelines, they're going to change all the time. And by the time
Right.
October gets here, they might be lenient or they might even be gone. Who knows?
Well, I think the guidelines allow for, like, as Steven said, like right now it's considering La Crosse County to be high. But if
Right.
La Crosse County becomes considered medium or whatever the next thing is called, based
the
on
guidelines will
those
change.
guidelines, then it changes. So at least people can predict,
Mhm.
you know, like, I'm sure it's going to go, like, if they believe, I'm sure it's going to go down, then I can maybe plan my event. Or what triggers are going to happen to make it go down to where we could allow more people. I just don't think that we're equipped to to put together a guideline like that.
And
To
I-
say, when would we allow more? When should we allow less? We shouldn't be doing that. The La Crosse County Health Department should be doing that.
And I agree with that. I think we're not experts at that. So we have to find some guideline, but they're guidelines, right? They're not, you don't have to
Right.
follow them 100%.
But Amanda, I guess if by adopting resolution 29-2020 and saying that we're going to go with the county compass, would we have the ability to make an exception on a case-by-case basis? If something else came up and we said, well, we don't, I mean, we could always change it again. We could
Yeah.
say, now we're not going to follow the compass anymore.
Correct.
Or-
I mean, resolutions are meant to be temporary legislation. So the idea is that at some point in time, we would either move to a different system or we would no longer feel the need to follow the compass and we would pass another resolution to that effect.
Right.
The county compass, for the most part, just gives an public assembly number. So we're not going to go out and police your event. If it says 50 people, the Onalaska Police Department's not going to go and say, you've got 52 people. I mean, the idea is that you follow the spirit of the county compass. Now, that's not to say that if you have 200 people and it says you should have 50 people, that maybe we tell you you can't have another special event or, you know, something to that effect. But I mean, the idea is, to Mayor Kim's point, is that we aren't public health experts. You know, by statute in Wisconsin, the county is what we were given. We are not also comparable to private businesses from a legal liability standpoint. I mean, there are issues as far as a state-created danger, how recreational immunity plays into certain things, our immunity. None of that's been tested. And so from a legal standpoint, I know as municipal lawyers, we're very cautious to want to lead the charge and be the city that tests what our immunity might be in these situations. And so deferring to public health is, from a legal standpoint, the safest thing to do.
Thank you, Amanda. Okay, we heard from Tom. Is there any other alders that haven't spoken yet that would like to speak?
Yeah, I was going to say,
Alder Olson?
is there a way that we can get a copy of their data and how fresh it is so that we can compare with other things?
Yeah, so they update their data daily and then they do a revision weekly on Wednesday. So tomorrow they'll issue a new level, either we'll stay or they'll adjust us accordingly. Some data is on the website, which I sent out, I think, to everybody, and some of it I think they hold internally. I mean, we could also request specific information if there's certain information that council members want. Jen has been pretty good with us for the most part in responding to requests for information.
Would that help your opinion if we got some?
Not unless they totally change the compass, because.
Okay. Did you guys want to talk, or we'll go? Okay, Alder Stevens, and then we'll go to Alder Knott.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yep.
So I have sentiments on both sides of the issue as a philanthropic, as an event planner in the community. It would certainly make my life easier if we could not have to abide by these and just go do our event. But as an elected official, I recognize that the city is not, and we're not in the health business, and we defer to the county. This is the going set of rules that, you know, if we're going to live by, we should live by. And when it comes to public health, I know that I'd agree with Alder Knott that a lot of things, sometimes government agencies tend to have more of a knee-jerk reaction than they ought to, but it's better to err on the side of caution than to be reckless. So between these two sides, my sense is that we should side with the county knowing that as the data comes in, the rules can change and we'll make adjustments. It just seems from a municipal standpoint that that's probably the wisest thing to do. But it does bring up, I do have two questions. One is for the city attorney, and then the other I'm posing to the board. The first is if this resolution fails, then emergency order number 4 is still in place. What does that mean for us? So that question would be to Amanda, and this I would direct back to the council is what are our other options? I mean, are we asking for no restrictions whatsoever? Are we asking for a different number, which would probably be just as arbitrary as 50? Or do we just want to keep emergency order number 4 in place? So I think what we need is a plan that we can go forward with, and this is at least a plan. I haven't heard of other options that seem like that they take into account public health and they're feasible for the city to oversee.
Okay, we'll turn to Amanda.
So you have a resolution on the table. You could amend that resolution by motion. If it fails altogether and nothing gets passed, then order number 4 would stay in place. The mayor could, in theory, issue a new order at any time because we are still under emergency. So she could replace it with order number 6.
Yes, and we did discuss, I could have, instead of bringing this resolution forward for discussion as a committee, I could have said, what we have now for resolution number 4 is no longer applicable, so I'm going to make this other resolution or emergency order, or the resolution could have been the new emergency order. But there was no need because we're going to discuss it and figure it out. Sorry,
Those are
Amanda.
kind of the options to address question number 1.
Okay, so then we'll go to Aldernott.
So just a couple additional comments. If I believe I was hearing right, what I heard was that as special events go through, that the police won't be enforcing the 50. And these are just, but the way I'm reading this is, and it says now therefore be reserved that resolved that the city of Onalaska and by its common council hereby rescinds mayoral proclamation for emergency number 4 and at this time adopts the Cooley COVID-19 compass as it relates to special events needing approval in the city of Onalaska. So this compass is what's going to determine approval, is the way this reads. And that's where I have the issue. And I've heard a lot of people talk experts, but I don't think it's even arguable that the experts have not just been wrong on this nationally, statewide, you name it, but they have been astronomically wrong in their estimates. When folks were also bringing up, the valid points that, the compass can change, it might change tomorrow is what I'm hearing. Well, even if it goes to green, low risk, social gatherings are limited to 100 or fewer people indoors and 250 or fewer outdoors. That's if we're green, folks, and if we use this compass. The only way that they are going to, that the board is, according to their own compass, is ever going to allow or recommend, I guess, with their guidelines, that we can have, go back to our lives is if there is a vaccine. That's what this says. That is what this says. Yeah. So, so even, we say it can go up and go down. Okay, well, if we go to moderate risk, now we're at 50 or 100. It's still all totally arbitrary numbers. I don't think we should be in the nanny state. I think that we should be informing our citizens that they should be able to exercise their rights as American citizens and as residents of Onalaska. And, if people don't want to get on with their lives, they don't have to go to the social gatherings. It's really that simple. So what I would recommend, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a motion that we amend the paragraph to where after it says mayoral proclamation from emergency order number 4, and the city will provide safety guidelines to applicants, period.
second that.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to amend the resolution 29-2020 to add the wording or replace the wording to be, and the city will provide safety guidelines to the applicants. Now, under discussion, what are safety guidelines? What is the definition of
Well,
that?
specifically, it would be the COVID-19, and you can use the compass for that, but now it's just informing. It's not having the compass decide for us whether or not we're going to approve special events.
So is it reasonable for me to add, provide
bu-
safety guidelines, specifically the
From the
COVID-19
county- well,
compass?
County Board of Health safety guidelines would be fine. Yeah, sure. So will I have to, do I need to withdraw my initial motion?
No, no, I'm just putting that as a clarifier for
Okay.
county board. Okay, so it'll say, the wording that's added that's replaced will then say, and the city will provide safety guidelines per the county board to applicants for special events. That's been made by Stephen Knott, seconded by Jim Olson.
It would be the county health department.
County Health.
Oh,
right?
Okay, yeah, I misspoke. You're right. Yeah, yeah.
And I was just writing down what he said.
Yeah.
I wasn't, okay, per county health department. Okay, discussion on the amendment. Alder Wolf.
So, and so how does this make this different from the original wording?
Well, I think we'll refer to the city attorney.
So I'm going to pick on Dan and say that Great River Sound wants to have a concert next week. As it's presented originally, it would be, you can have that and we're approving it contingent on you following the county compass, which says that you can only have 50 people in an outdoor gathering. What Steve is suggesting would be that you can have any special event to any level you want, and we're just saying, hey, there are these guidelines out there, you might want to follow them.
Thank you.
Is that correct?
Yes, it changes it from the compass determining whether or not we approve to the compass and any other guidance that the county has to where we can inform the event folks on what the county recommends they do. And they can choose as American citizens whether or not to follow.
So, just to make sure I understand correctly, so we would be approving, if this were passed, we would be approving things according to the way we always have approved special.
Guidelines, we approve it subject to, at the time of your event, you're following the county guidelines. That's actually what's happening right now, correct? So it is not
What's
dictated.
proposed to be happening?
No, that's what's happening even under the resolution, is that the guidelines, it would be the same thing, noise ordinance, right? So we can approve a event subject to following our noise ordinance. We're not saying yes or no, or it's going to be allowed or not, or approval or denying it. It would be at the night of the events, follow the noise ordinance, and here's the guidelines. That's what we currently do, and I think, Dan, you can speak to that in terms of your events, that so we can approve it, but we don't know at the time what the county guidelines will be. That does make it difficult, but we're not denying it based on the fact that there may be more numbers than proposed than the current guidelines. So that's a bit of difference. We're not denying based on the guidelines. We're approving it subject to, at the time, the special event following the guidelines.
Hey, Alder Knott.
Well, I can tell you back when we were in the administrative committee, when a lot of these were coming forward for approval, that's exactly what was happening, is that we were constraining and the way the vote went forward, and it's part now of this packet for, the consent agenda, they can have this event only if they do this.
Exactly. Denying it, that's approving it. And that's
Yeah.
what the ordinance. the
And that's what I
resolution here
don't want to do.
celebrates.
I want to inform people, and they
Right.
can make their own decisions.
To clarify again, though, that it is a change from what is proposed here is what you're asking for, no
Yeah.
doubt.
Okay,
The comment, though, about we're denying it based on that is not accurate. We're not denying it, or even with this resolution denying it. We're proving it subject to them following those guidelines, which can change. Or if they're not likely to achieve it, we're letting people know that the guidelines for tomorrow are, 10 people or so. You're not going to have your event if you can't follow those guidelines. But it's not the city denying that. And that's the fine line here is giving the information out. To Amanda's point, I have grave concerns about that as taxpayer. We are inviting a higher level of scrutiny than the private sector has. By approving something, if someone gets sick, it's going to be, yeah, but the city and their experts said it was safe. So we had the events. That's a concern of mine. If we are deferring to someone that does have a degree, and are the numbers arbitrary or not, any numbers that anybody internally could come up with will be just as arbitrary. But they are based then on somebody with a degree's opinion, not an administrator or elected official's opinion. And that's my concern overall the restaurants are at limited capacity. Members of the public are required to wear masks in certain businesses. They're restricting their websites. And we're effectively saying, but come here, have a special event and no restrictions at all. Sure, here's some guidelines, but really we're approving them with no restrictions at all. That puts us in the forefront and that puts us in the test. And that I think is a risk for the city taxpayers that I would suggest you do not take.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Alder Stevens?
Thank you, Your Honor. If the resolution amendment passes, I seem to recall in the minutes of the A&J that new events were not being considered this year. It was one of the criteria was it had to be an existing ongoing event. Would the new events be welcome to reapply, and then the guidelines would commence as any other?
In both cases, whether it's amended or not. Because that was that was part of the mayoral order 4 was what said no new events. So once that's rescinded, then they could come forward again.
Thank you. I was trying to weigh the implications of the amendment.
Right, we're trying to open it up, but within reason. Amanda, can you talk about the risk to the city by passing the amendment for litigation?
I mean, I just would echo Eric in the fact that we're not treated equally to the private sector. I mean, people do look for government, to provide them guidance, and we are subject to a different level of scrutiny. And so we do have certain immunities in place. There's also something called state created danger that's a little bit unknown as far as how that could play into this. And so there's just, I think, more risk than normal. There hasn't been a pandemic since 1918, and it was a different type of disease and a different type of world back then. And so I guess, I would just echo what I said earlier, which is that, we don't have a public health department. And by statute, we can't have a public health department. We're required to rely on our county health department. They've put out guidelines. I understand that there's a lot of debate over the science on all levels of this pandemic, but they are our local health expert who are reviewing it locally in our community. And so from a legal standpoint, we have the least amount of risk, I think, by following our local county public health department.
Thank you, Amanda. Do any other counselors want to add anything? Okay, Alder Knott, and then we'll vote on the amendment.
So just a clarification on one thing, then I have a question for Mannigan. There actually have been 2 pandemics that I'm aware of that have occurred since 1917. um, uh, including one that happened as recently as in the 1960s, if I recall right. But the question I have is, by providing the guidelines of these experts that we're going to be relying on, providing them to the special event planners, are we not passing some or maybe even all of the risk that we're discussing over to them? Because we're saying, here's the guidelines. I think you should consider them, and there you go. So,
Which I guess goes back to the idea that if we are the private sector, yes, I think that's what the private sector does, but a municipality is held to a higher standard, and we have different, there's different legal expectations, there's different concerns as far as, to Eric's point, if we sanction an event, even if we tell them, that they should follow the guidelines, but then suddenly we've got a situation where you've got 30 cases tied to an event that we stamped, I think we do have some risk as far as if we just tell you, it's optional to follow these guidelines, but we're going to let you ignore our local county guidelines and have an event with 200 people when the county's saying that you should only have 50. I do think there's a little bit of risk there.
Yeah.
I can't tell you the level of risk, but
Your Honor, I have a question regarding risk. if I may.
Sure, Alder Stevens?
Process, I having gone through it, I know that it is the expectation of event planners to provide their own insurance, proof of insurance. In the event that, let's say somebody, there was an event, guidelines were given and duly ignored, and there was a gathering and COVID was rampantly spread. Do we believe that the liability would fall on the event and their insurance, or would it fall to the city, or would it be both?
I think likely it's going to be both. I don't know. I mean, it comes to, even if we have a defense, we're still going to have to go through the process, right? Because the city has traditionally deeper pockets than the private sector more often than, depending on who's throwing the event. And so they're going to come after the city. I mean, and so it may be a situation where regardless, we end up having to defend it. I mean, there's a lot of different hypotheticals. It could be a situation where their insurance covers it, without looking at their, insurance is not necessarily set up to cover this type of situation. It depends on the policy they have in place.
In the event that the city was sued due to a COVID outbreak at an event, would the likelihood of litigation against the city be high, low, or we don't know?
We don't know. There's a lot of factors that could come, into play.
Okay, Alder Knott, then we're going to wrap it up.
well, I have another question. So how is the issuing of guidelines different as per liability than not enforcing the guidelines, which is what we've already said is probably going to happen, is we won't enforce them. So how's the liability different?
I think that's a fair point. I think that, as I said earlier, we're not going to enforce them to the extent that we're going to probably go out and count every single person. But I do think, there would be, if we had a situation where suddenly 200 people were showing up to an event that was approved to have 50, we likely would break that up. But it provides us a defense that we were given a set of guidelines from our local public health department. We required people to follow them. If they chose not to follow them, if, to a certain degree, I will admit, it passes the buck a little bit back onto them. So.
Okay, let's go ahead and vote on the amendment. The amendment removes the wording about adopting the Cooley COVID-19 Compass and replaces it with the wording, and the city will provide safety guidelines per the county health department to applicants.
Ask for roll call,
The
please.
motion was made by Stephen Knott. It was seconded by Jim Olson, and the vote will be by roll call. I will say the names and the clerk will record and tell me the score when we're done. Alder Tom Smith,
No,
Alder Jim Olson,
Aye.
Alder Dan Stevens,
I think this affects me directly. I believe I need to abstain.
thank you, sir. Alder Diane Wolf,
No.
Alder Stephen Knott.
Aye.
And the vote is? And it's a tie.
Get to vote.
This is the unique time. This is historic with the council of 5. I will vote against the amendment. So therefore, the amendment fails. And we'll go back to the original resolution, original motion to adopt Resolution 29-2020. The important part of that is it says that we will rescind mayoral proclamation for emergency order number 4 and adopt the Cooley COVID-19 Compass as it relates to special events needing approval from the city of Onalaska. Do we need to discuss that any further? Alder Stevens.
I would just like to add that it struck me that on anything with regard to this resolution will affect what I am doing directly next Tuesday night. So I think ethically I'm bound to abstain from the vote.
Okay, thank you, sir. Alder Knott?
I just want to also, with the resolution as it stands now, certainly it's less restrictive than in the past. So I intend to support this.
Thank you, Alder Knott. Any other discussion? Okay, so all in favor of Resolution 29-2020, please say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. Abstain, say aye.
I abstain.
Thank you. Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you for the good discussion. Okay, we're moving on to the consent agenda. So recommendations for approval and/or possible action from the following committees, commissions, or boards. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member requests removal, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in the order of business in the non-consent agenda. So I will now call for items people would like removed from the consent agenda. Alder Wolf.
Thank you, Your Honor. Under Judiciary, I would like to pull item I, and under Board of Public Works, I would like to pull item 3, P3, from the consent. Thank you.
What was the item on Board of Public Works?
Board of Public Works, P3, the ceiling fans. Alder Stevens.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would like to pull off the Administrative Committee item L1.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other items the counselors would like pulled from the consent agenda? Okay, then I'll consider a motion to pass the consent agenda with those items removed.
So move.
Will second.
Motion was by Jim Olson, seconded by Dan Stevens to pass the consent agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Okay. All right, now the non-consent agenda. Item 7 is a recap of the items pulled from the agenda. We'll take these in the order they were on the original agenda. So under Judiciary I, approval of the ordinance 1671-2020 to amend Title III of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Onalaska relating to finance. Diane.
Uh,
Is that in the past, we have had items that were surplus. This is what we're talking about, surplus items that are going to sale. Council had voted on it And I understand that the process of expediting things that are now kind of minor. I think $500 was the cutoff point. Perhaps that could be higher, but in terms of transparency to the public, I don't think council needs to be involved in the minutia, but I think if items are going, that are assets on our balance sheet are going for sale at auction, I think it would be nice if there were at least a list provided to council that these items we no longer have and we sold them. So if this is referred to next month, perhaps it could be amended to reflect that.
Thank you, Alder Stevens. I will say that I think part of the intent of this, though, was to move that from an ordinance to the finance handbook, which is how it is handled now. So I don't think it was a substantive change to the process, just removing it from the ordinance. I don't think it was changing the practice. But we can talk more about that for next month. Alder Wolf?
Thank you, Your Honor. And I know City Administrator had weighed in on the topic at A&J, and I agreed with him that it's more of a kind of perfunctory thing to move it to get it out of the ordinances in case there were any changes in the future. And there's, but I just wanted to see how it was referenced in the policy manual before I approved, and that's the only thing that I was looking for. So I agree with it in theory. I just wanted to see what did the policy manual say. That's all. That was my only concern. So thank you.
Okay. And all of those events, the motion is to refer to July. Okay, so. July council.
Yes. I don't see any reason for it to come back to A&J. It's just,
Okay, so would the council want that on the consent or on the non-consent then for July? We should have it on the non-consent for July, and then we can discuss this in more detail. Okay, so all in favor of the motion to refer this ordinance to the July council meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And then just going in order, the next item pulled from the consent agenda was under the administrative committee, item LI, the Great River Sound on Tuesday evening from approximately 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. And I'll turn it over to Alder Stevens.
Thank you, Your Honor. Again, the primary reason for me pulling this off the agenda was, as it affects me directly as the chief organizer, I should probably not be voting on that as part of the consent agenda. That said, I would like to say, just use this opportunity, the current plan for this year, we have been affected by COVID-19. We have not had a concert for the first 2 weeks. Tomorrow, the Onalaska Hilltopper Rotary Club will meet, and we will determine, partially based off of the guidance here tonight, what our activity will be going forward. While it's not official, I'm expecting that tomorrow we will likely cancel our concert series through the middle of July, and we will send a press release, and I will also update the city, or you can, if something changes, I'll let you know. But no other comments.
Thank you, Alder Stevens. I'll entertain a motion concerning this item.
motion to approve under Administrative Committee, item L1.
Second.
Motion by Alder Wolf, seconded by Alder Smith to approve the special event permit for the Great River Sound. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Those abstaining?
Abstain.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously with one abstention. And then under item P, number 3, the ceiling fans. I'll refer to Alder Wolf.
Thank you again, Your Honor. It's just an oversight, I think, under P3 ceiling fans, cold storage by Click Electric in the amount of $2,000. The agenda says $3,000, but per Board of Public Works agenda and minutes, it's really $3,650. So I just wanted to clarify that the actual amount should be that we're approving tonight. And I will make that motion that we approve ceiling fans for the cold storage by Click Electric in the amount of $3,650 per the Board of Public Works meeting.
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion by Alder Wolf, seconded by Alder Knott. Is there further discussion? Jared, did you want to comment on that?
No, this will be fine.
Thank you. All right, all those in favor of the motion, which changes the amount to $3,650, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, now, that concludes number 7. Now, we're going to move to item 8, and I will turn it over to Alder Stevens.
Thank you, Your Honor. Under item 8A vouchers, the following is a list of monies expended since the last common council meeting dated May 12th, 2020, and the amount is $1,700,462.82, and we recommend approval.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Olson. Is there discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries unanimously.
Under item 8B, Resolution 26-2020, authorize the waiver of interest and penalties on property tax payment installments due on or before April 1st, 2020. The committee approves and recommends approval of this resolution.
Second.
Motion by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Olson to approve Resolution 26-2020. Is there discussion? Oh, I'm sorry. I got off track. Alder Stevens, sorry.
After speaking with Fred, the finance director, this was it's actually a pretty good deal for us. If payments are late to the county, taxpayers are given a little bit of leniency with respect to the county, but it will not adversely affect how much money the city of Onalaska receives or when. And so our ability to pay our bills is not impeded by the passage of this resolution.
Thank you, Alder Stevens. Alder Knott?
So the only question I have is, was there reasoning behind why we do not have a expiration date on this, if you will, an end date? It just says after April 1st, but I guess where I'm going is, kind of hard pressed right now to find businesses that aren't coming back online unless they were just hit so hard with the shutdown that unfortunately they've gone out of business. So hiring is going on. I think that, certainly if we're going to consider a through date on this for waiving the interest, that we would want to give enough time for, new employees to be able to get a couple pay periods underneath, and we probably need 30 days to advertise that this is going to end or what have you. So, maybe around the July 15th, I'm not making that as a motion. I'm kind of throwing it out there for discussion right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good point, Alder Knott. Let's ask the city administrator, Eric Reinflush, his opinion or input.
The ordinance that we'd have to pass has to be exact to what the county ordinance is, and the county ordinance is written as per the acts of the state,
Okay.
which is because the county has to collect and charge fees normally under the certain deadlines, but they were given the freedom to extend those out as per the acts of the state in reaction to the economic downturn of the COVID-19 response. It's also in the county, we wouldn't be able to do that because we're not actually at the point where we're collecting taxes here. They're being collected in the county on our behalf now and then submitted to us. So basically at the settlement dates, we'll be getting our settlement amounts. And as Alder Stevens pointed out, that whatever those deadlines are, the county will make the city whole since they're responsible for collection right now.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Any other comments or questions? Okay, motion on the floor is to approve Resolution 26-2020. All those in favor, please say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to personnel.
Thank you again, Your Honor. Under item 9A, the Personnel Committee, approval of recruit officer agreement with Wisconsin Professional Police Association and the City of Onalaska regarding the hiring of police officer recruits. The committee recommends approval of this item.
I'll second.
We have a motion on the floor by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Knott, to approve the recruit officer agreement. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Administrative Committee.
Your Honor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the weights and measurement license from 7/1/2020 to 6/30/2021. And Carrie has provided that attachment in your packet tonight, so.
On the table.
Pardon me? Yes. Okay. All right, now add that to it, that they submit the paperwork by that July 31st, right?
Second.
July 1st, yeah.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Alder Smith, seconded by Alder Olson to approve the weights and measures as described. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Board of Public Works, Alder Wolf.
Thank you, Your Honor. Item 11A, review and consideration of tree removal on city right-of-way at 906 Westview Circle Drive. On a vote of 4-1 in favor, it was a recommendation of the Board of Public Works, and I will move that the city of Onalaska plant a tree on city right-of-way at 906 Westview Circle Drive at a cost to Stephen Marcos not to exceed $450. City staff will work with Stephen Marcos regarding which type of tree to plant. That is my motion.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Motion by Alder Wolf, seconded by Alder Smith. Discussion. Alder Wolf.
Thank you. And under discussion, the motion that I made is taken right from the minutes. And also it was the intention, it wasn't part of the motion, but in discussion after the motion at Board of Public Works, it was the intention to replace the tree in 2021.
That's right. All right, thank you for that. Alder Stevens.
I believe this was Mr. Marcos that had called in under public input, and it seems like he had, takes a lot of pride in his property. Was he amenable to the replacement of the tree at $450? So he'd take responsibility, but is that the going price of trees these days, I guess? That seems high.
Well, it's our contracted cost for a tree that size.
Would he have the ability to plant his own tree, or because it's in the right of way, that is not, okay. I was just looking for options. It seemed like he was trying really hard, and whatever we could do to help him out would be nice.
Alder Wolf.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I know in the minutes, I know Jared had spoke briefly on this, that, typically it's city staff that plants the trees to get it properly placed where it should be and such, and just to provide the consistency. This is pretty much the typical protocol that the city has had in force for several years. So it'd just be kind of wash, rinse, repeat, just keep doing what we've always done. I've met with him personally at his home. I've talked with him a handful of times, and I told him that if this did go forward tonight, because he was kind of curious, he's unsure of just how it's going to work for the payment and such. I told him that he could certainly reach out to staff tomorrow and talk about the payment, whether it's this year or next year, because I didn't know the particulars, but he could certainly reach out to staff. But he is amenable to going ahead and paying upwards of $450 for the tree. And he's very appreciative that he would be able to work with staff and pick out which type of tree.
All right, thank you very much. The motion on the floor is to approve the planting of the tree, and the homeowner will bear the cost not to exceed $450. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor. Item 11B, review and consideration of Green Coulee Reservoir project bid. I'll turn this to Jared, because I know we had bids come in today.
Thank you. I have handed out in your table tonight a review packet of the materials from the Greens Coulee Reservoir bid that were received today. We did receive 5 bids. I am happy to say that the bid came in very favorable to the city. The engineer's estimate on the project was $1,300,000, and we have a low bid of $847,000. You can see the bids are spaced out between $847,000 and $1,111,000. I have also included a budget sheet. This is the last water project that will be bid as part of the mortgage revenue bonds from 2019. So we do show that we have adequate funding from the mortgage revenue bonds to pay for this project. So staff is recommending the award of the Green Coulee Reservoir project to Wapasaw Construction in the amount of $847,000.
And thank you, Jared. I will go ahead and make that motion to award the Green Coulee Reservoir project to Wapasaw Construction Company in the amount of $847,000.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Alder Wolf, seconded by Alder Stevens to award the bid to Wapasaw Construction Company, $847,000. Discussion? Alder Stevens.
If my math is correct, we're almost a little shy of $500,000 under bid. I mean, that's great news, but almost sounds too good to be true. I mean, this is, my question for Jared is, what does he attribute all 5 companies underbidding our estimate? Is this just a product of the current economic times?
I'll go ahead. Thank you, Alder Stevens. I do believe part of this is a variety of functions here. Part of it is we have some contractors that are looking for work more so than others because of the current climate that they have had. We've been informed that projects have dried up on the private side in certain areas, so they are looking for work. With that, are bidding it in June. Sometimes we get higher project costs bid when we do this in the middle of the summer, but this contractor was looking for work to finish out their year, and we're eagerly anticipating bids. We did contact the low bidder, Wapasaw Construction, today, and they said yes, they are fully aware of their price that they submitted and are ready to move forward with the project. I think when we looked at the engineer's estimate for our consultant, we were conservative on a number of fronts that we saw. Also, the grading portion of this project with the grading, erosion control, and also the subcontractor that's doing the directional boring of the water main gave very good prices to the general. So I think it was a combination of a lot of perfect things that came together for a very good price for the city.
This is a excellent, we'll call it a win for the taxpayers of Onalaska.
Thank you, Jared. So we have a motion on the floor to approve the bid, $847,000 Wapasaw Construction for the Greens Coulee Reservoir project. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Alder Wolf.
And item 11C under Board of Public Works, review and consideration of engineering services for construction of Green Coulee Reservoir project by Short Elliott Hendrickson, not to exceed $57,500. It was the recommendation of Board of Public Works, and I will move that we approve engineering services for construction of the Green Coulee Reservoir project by SEH, not to exceed $57,500 even.
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion by Alder Wolf, seconded by Alder Knott to approve engineering services for the construction of the Greens Coulee Reservoir project by Short Elliott Hendrickson, not to exceed $57,500. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries unanimously. Item 12, Plan Commission was an application for a general development plan to create the Eagle Business Condo Association Planned Unit Development filed by Adam Kirschner, Eagle Business Condo Association, 200 Mason Street, number 6, Onalaska, Wisconsin, 54650. On behalf of the Eagle Business Condo Association, 200 Mason Street, Onalaska, Wisconsin, 54650 for the city of Onalaska parcels at 200 Mason Street, units 1 through 20. It was a recommendation of the Plan Commission to approve this planned development with 9 conditions, and one of the conditions were reworded. It was condition number 2B. 7, landscaping shall be required along the south lot line facing the Van Riper Park and the Omni Center, that wording be removed. I'd like to turn it over to Katie right now for comment. Katie Aspenson, our city planner.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have the applicant on the phone call tonight if there are any questions direct from the Common Council. This was put on there as there were just some questions related to signage. The application itself had listed that each applicant or each person or business residing within a unit would be able to have up to 100 square foot wall signs. It was eventually approved by the Plan Commission, and city staff did discuss this with the applicant, and they confirmed that yes, that was in fact correct. That there would be a total of up to 2 occupants per unit, which would mean that there would be a total of up to 400 square feet, which is currently allowable by city code. If there are any additional questions, I'm happy to address them.
Thank you, Katie. Okay, so would the committee like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve.
Second.
Okay, motion by Alder Smith, seconded by Alder Olson to approve the application as described. Is there discussion? Alder Wolf?
I was surprised that this was not in our packet. Usually it would be, and I was just concerned about the changes that were made so I appreciate you weighed in on that. Because it typically would have been in our packet with like maybe the updated change or something. So,
With the conditions?
yeah, with the conditions. So your motion is with that condition, correct?
Yep, I read it right off the minutes.
Just wanted to make sure. Okay, thank you.
So just to restate, the motion that is on the floor is to approve the Eagle Business Condo Association planned unit development with 9 conditions as stated at the Plan Commission, with the exception of 2B7 has some wording removed about the landscaping. Landscaping shall be required along the south lot line facing Van Riper Park and Omni Center. Okay, everybody clear?
Mhm.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And then item B is review and consideration of the green fee refund request for the property at 2614 Midwest Drive, tax parcel number 18-4769-0. We do have a memo on our desk, but I'll turn it over to City Planner Katie Aspenson for a description.
Thank you, Mayor. What you have before you this evening is a request to refund what the applicant, the owner of the property on Midwest Drive, believes is an overpayment of a green fee. I put together, with the assistance of our city attorney, a memo that describes how the city has collected green fees over the course of the year. A very brief summary is this property is located within the Elmwood Business Center plat. In 1992, it was approved and there was a green fee at the time of $100 plus $10 per acre. The following information on the memo describes how other CSMs have occurred. Green fees have increased over time. And then ending on the note that in September of 2019, we did issue a site plan permit. And we noted what the updated green fee is as of today. Conditions related to fees are requirement to pay the fees, which are subject to change. Yes, it was included in on the final plat. However, that is not the opinion of the staff. It does not lock that fee into perpetuity. The property also increased in size through an approved certified survey map. And the property owner agreed to pay this fee when they signed the site plan permit. Therefore, a city does not believe a refund is in order. The green fee was paid at the time of the development with the current fee amount.
Thank you for that. What is the pleasure of the committee?
I will make a motion to deny.
Okay, we have a motion to deny by Alder Wolf. Is there a second?
Second for discussion, I guess.
Motion by Diane Wolf, seconded by Alder Stevens to deny. the refund, green fee refund request. Discussion. Alder Stevens.
Thank you. This question is actually for Katie. Is there any, from a department head perspective, is there any reason why, or do you have a recommendation why we should accept this? Or are you recommending to deny the claim?
She's recommending to deny the claim. Katie
Ask
Asperson.
Katie.
Yes, Alder Stevens, city is recommending that we deny this claim as the fee was paid for what the current amount is today, paid for at the time of development.
Thank you, Katie. Alder Wolf.
Thank you, Your Honor. If anyone hasn't noticed, there has been a handout. So I don't know if everyone has read it, but there has been a handout. So, and it was recommended, she noted that they were not supportive of it. And I had called Katie earlier today, and she explained to me that a memo was going to be coming out today. And she did state before my motion to deny that they believe that refund was not in order. So that is why I made my motion, and that is why I will be urging council to support the longstanding practice of what staff has done, and I will be voting to support the non-payment or the non-refunding. So, thank you.
Thank you, Alder Wolf. Is there any other discussion? Alder Stevens.
Just for the record, this handout was presented here tonight, so I had not had time to read it before, thus asking Katie her opinion.
Okay, thank you. Noted. Any other discussion?
The motion is to,
The motion is to deny the green fee refund request. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion passes unanimously. The green fee request has been denied. Item 13, Utilities Committee.
Thanks, Your Honor. On Utilities Committee, item A, accept the modifications to the city Title VI plan. Make a motion that we do so.
Second.
Motion by Jim Olson, seconded by Dan Stevens to accept the modifications of the city Title VI plan. Discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries unanimously.
Item B, Resolution 28-2020 to approve the Federal Transit Administration FDA Title VI Program Plan Update. Make a motion, we accept that.
Second.
Motion has been made by Jim Olson, seconded by Dan Stevens to approve Resolution 28-2020. Is there discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 14, report from the city clerk. Item A, authorization to accept the CARES subgrant funds from the Wisconsin Elections Commission in the amount of $12,554.10. Carrie, would you like to weigh in on that? Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so,
Could you
Yes.
just because Carrie doesn't have a microphone, the viewers at home can't hear what she's saying. And so could you maybe just, summarize what Carrie just said?
sure, we have, what Carrie is looking for authorization to accept this grant, which will help us offset the additional costs that we will be seeing for the election, the upcoming election. Elections this year's extra expenses. Okay. Okay, all right, well, we'll need a motion eventually. Alder Stevens.
I move that we authorize to accept the CARES subgrant funds from the Wisconsin Elections Commission in the amount of $12,554.10.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Smith to accept authorization to accept the subgrant funds from the Wisconsin Elections Commission in the amount of $12,554.10. Discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion passes unanimously. Item 15 is closed session to consider a motion to convene in closed session under section 19.85, paragraph 1, paragraph E of the Wisconsin statutes for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting of other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. IAFF, International Association of Firefighters, Local 127, and under section 19.85, paragraph 1, paragraph G of the Wisconsin statutes for the purpose of conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved. IAFF, International Association of Firefighters, Local 127, Prohibitive Practice Complaint. RE, Part-Time EMTs. If any action is required in open session as a result of the closed session, the Common Council will reconvene in open session to take the necessary action and/or continue on with the printed agenda. Do I have a motion?
That we go into closed session?
Second.
Motion by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Olson to go into closed session. The voting will be by roll call. Alder Tom Smith,
Aye.
Alder Jim Olson,
Aye.
Alder Dan Stevens,
Aye.
Alder Diane Wolf,
Aye.
Alder Stephen Knott.
Aye.
The vote was unanimous. We are in closed session. The time is 8:25. Thank you all who joined us virtually.